So we have some really massive breaking news to finally share in today's update, which is really about the fact that most people probably already know this, but to maybe finally officially get it out there, is that as of the last couple of days, is that President Joe Biden has now officially approved and signed the brand new fourth stimulus inflation bill, otherwise also known as the Inflation Reduction Act. So with this officially being signed inside of the House, inside of the Senate, and now inside of President Joe Biden's desk, it means that the approval process has now officially been completed. So the big idea is that in today's update, I really just want to talk about this bill for a little bit, about what this actually means for us, what are the goals that this bill is actually trying to physically achieve, how we can potentially benefit, and then a little bit of what to know of what's actually physically inside of this bill. I will say is that because there are so many different things inside of this bill, I do think is I'm probably going to try to make a future video where I kind of just dive into each of the subcategories within this bill about what's inside, so we can really kind of get the idea of how we can potentially maybe get some money or benefit from it in some sort of way. But today's video is probably going to be the grand video where I just talk about a little bit of everything. So it's really like the big picture video, so highly definitely recommend watching through. Even if you've seen another video about this, maybe I'll put some personal insight, so hopefully there's still something relatively unique about this. But of course, as always, we are going to get started right on the spot. But as always, real fast before we begin, if you guys enjoy videos like this, remember to smash the like button. Of course, you guys can also watch to the end to decide, but it is just something that's always greatly appreciated. Consider subscribing and hitting the bell if you guys are brand new here, especially as just mentioned is that if we do end up rolling out new videos, you guys can also potentially get notified. And of course, as always, feel free to comment any questions, personal thoughts about honestly just really anything, maybe about what you currently think about this bill, whether or not you like it, maybe not so much, or maybe it's just a little bit more indifferent, and it's okay to be on either way. But of course, with that being said, let's get this video started. So to start maybe by giving a little bit of a background story about how this bill works and what it is that essentially this bill specifically is called, as the name suggests, the Inflation Reduction Act. The intended goal of trying to have this proposal is to fight inflation. Of course, right now at this current time, there's a lot of very controversial and mixed opinions if it's actually going to physically achieve that. Feel free to share your particular comments about it, maybe especially at the end as we learn more information, because again, that's what we're going to be talking about. But the total cost of this entire bill that they're really going to be putting together is going to be priced at around $750 billion. So it's definitely it's a lot of money. That's definitely a very massive amount of money. But it is definitely a lot less than the original Build Back Better plan that they originally wanted to get through, which was originally priced in the upper $1 trillion to lower $2 trillion package. So it's about basically now half of its size. Now, the big idea is that within this $750 billion bill, they're hoping to essentially reserve about $369 billion. So again, 369, pretty clean number, for climate and energy policies. And then also about $64 billion for extending policies related to the Affordable Care Act. And then the rest of the money that they're currently having is going to be split in various ways to really be able to be used for a lot of the other policies. So things such as, like, again, as mentioned, healthcare, climate change, IRS related funding, giving them any programs related to that, and also about trying to implement a lot of these policies and stuff related to the corporate tax policies that they're currently hoping to try to deal with through this bill. Now, the specific goals that this bill is really trying to achieve is that it's really hoping the first part is about trying to raise taxes on wealthy individuals, but even more specifically on corporations that are making $1 billion or more. They want to raise it or create a 15% tax specifically for those companies so that they can finally pay their own particular share of taxes. Now, they're believing the belief is that by creating this specific tax policy, so the 15% on, major massive corporations, they're going to try to raise about $737 billion in revenue. So in other words, is that this is not the amount of money that's going to be in the bill, this, 737, but this is the amount of money that they're hoping to potentially make in profit in revenue by the policies within this particular bill. Now, of course, there are also other kinds of expenses, things that they have to pay for, and all sorts of different things. But within the $737 billion in total revenue that they're hoping to raise up, they hope to spend about they hope to essentially get specifically about 124 billion from things related to the actual enforcements of the IRS. So in other words, the IRS enforcement situation, and helping to reduce things like the budget deficit. So anything related to kind of like inflation policies and things in that particular world. So the really, really big ideas, aside from a lot of the general policies that we mentioned, really what the intention of this particular bill is that it's really helping to essentially use the policies to raise money so that they can now use that money for other policies, interestingly enough. So for example, like this is actually a graph that I recently just found, which I think is a pretty clear illustration because, a lot of us, I know we love photographs, including me. But what this really shows is that just pretty much just shows where the money that they're trying to raise up actually will physically come from, and then about what they actually physically hope to do with the money that they will potentially try to raise up. At least that's according to what the plan that they're trying to set for right now. So really the money that they're trying to raise up, the bottom line is that it's going to be coming from a combination of taxes from the IRS, taxes from the 15% of the corporations that are going to be taxed, stuff related to enforcing the new tax policies, and then also interestingly a lot related to like the reduction in the cost from healthcare and negotiated drug prices. So this is one of the healthcare policies that we kind of briefly mentioned in a past update, but the big idea really is that when people, as they save money on these healthcare related programs, so again, keep in mind it's trying to make it a lot more affordable, the money that they will save by going through this particular program, that is the money that they're going to use to essentially fund and raise up to try to achieve that particular goal that we just mentioned about trying to raise up that amount of money. Now, in terms of the specific timeline about this particular bill, really the big idea is that what's going on right now is that a lot of these policies are going to be now starting almost kind of immediate. And the reason why I say kind of immediate is that because many of these tax policies, or these policies in general, really relate to taxes. So as most people know is that technically the tax season for this particular, or this particular year that we're trying to do for, has obviously actually now officially been over. So the big idea really is that a lot of these policies, they technically actually start right now because they apply to a lot of the things that we are going to be doing right now, because the things that we do right now are going to apply for the taxes, or when we do our taxes next year. So essentially, maybe if it sounds a little bit confusing in simpler terms, is that in April of every single year, we do taxes. A lot of these policies, they're going to really start to implement April of 2023, because that's when we actually physically do our taxes. But the taxes that we do on April 2023, technically they relate to the actions and the things that we do in 2022. So it's one of those policies that when it comes to the timeline, most of these policies, more or less, they're pretty much starting almost immediately. But a lot of the stuff related to like the tax credits, certain plans or things related to like credits and anything in that world, they don't technically actually take effect until next year, but it's more because next year is when we actually do our taxes, and then that's when we actually calculate how much we owe, how much we have to pay back, how much we get back in return, and everything in that particular world. So it's kind of one of those things, maybe to make it in simpler terms, is that it starts immediately, but the actual deliveries don't actually start until next year, when it actually, when we actually physically do our taxes. And in terms of how long it's going to last, right now at this current time, many of these programs, it kind of just depends on which one, again, because there's so many. But the time frame is that they're hoping to try to implement a lot of these policies and have them apply over the next about 2 to 3 years into right around 2025. And that's kind of the goal that they're really trying to achieve from here. Now, beyond that is all of that is still, of course, to be determined because it's a little bit too early to call. Now, in terms of how can we actually physically benefit from all of this stuff, aside from the fact that first off is that obviously a lot of these programs are really meant for things such as like, again, climate, environment, everything in that world. The first is probably going to be more of like a lifestyle benefit, because if you care about the environment, maybe you're very, very, conscious about that area, it's going to make, our personal lifestyle on a regular basis a lot better in that particular sense. However, I know most of us are probably really just in it for the money, because at the end of the day, most of these are pretty much just finance channels, and we're trying to talk about the financial, fiscal, monetary side of things. So how can we potentially actually benefit from that is that within this bill, interestingly, and this is probably something we have to dive much deeper into in another future video, so definitely consider subscribing if you guys haven't done so, and huge thanks if you guys have been here. But within this particular bill, there are actually certain tax policies specifically related to giving American citizens tax credits or rebates related to things that we do in our regular life. So for example, there's supposedly going to be a tax credit / a tax rebate when you upgrade things in your life related to such as like energy, home improvement, anything in that particular world. If you decide to end up deciding to upgrade your car into order to get like a Tesla, so for example, any kind of electric vehicle, they're going to be doing some kind of tax credit for that. The big idea really is that the way that we can actually potentially get money through this particular bill is that if we are able to qualify for some of the tax credits or benefits that are going on through this program, that is potentially some ways that people might even be able to make some money out of this. Of course, all of this stuff, again, just as mentioned before, is that it's going to apply to the tax season after. So it's this year, but when you do your taxes for this year, next year. So that's hopefully to give, again, a clear gauge of the timeline of what's happening. But of course, with all of these policies, at least we now know is that there are going to be a lot of things that are happening. Even though it is true that Congress right now is on vacation because of, Labor Day weekend, at the end of the day, when they come back, they're going to have to focus on the midterm elections. So there's obviously a lot of things related to political stuff, social, economic, because they're also working on a lot of other kinds of foreign affairs, and then of course also domestic, which is what a huge part of what this particular bill is actually intended to do. But of course, a lot of this stuff in more details we hopefully will explore in one of the next updates of this Kevin show. So if you guys made it so far, as always, remember to smash the like button if you guys haven't done so already. Of course, you guys can decide, but it is always greatly appreciated. Consider subscribing and hitting the bell. And as always, feel free to comment any questions, personal thoughts about anything really. So with that being said, if you guys made it this far, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, stay safe, stay well, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.